You're paying more for fuel right now. You've seen it, you felt it. But what you're seeing is the smallest part of what's actually happening. Because the real impact of this oil shock isn't a single price increase, it's a chain reaction. And that chain reaction is already moving through the economy, quietly, systematically, in waves. Most people will only recognize it after it has already hit their bank account. Let's start with the obvious: fuel prices. Across the US, gasoline has jumped from under $3 per gallon to around $3.70. In some states, it's already above $5. Diesel, the fuel that powers trucks, logistics, supply chains, has surged more than 30%. And that matters more than gasoline ever will. Because diesel doesn't just move people, it moves everything. Food, packages, raw materials, every product that ends up in your home. Now here's where your brain makes its first mistake. The average household spends roughly $2,500 a year on fuel. So when that cost rises by $10 or $15 a week, it feels manageable. Annoying, but manageable. So your brain categorizes it as a minor inconvenience and moves on. That's the problem. Because you're not reacting to the system, you're reacting to a single line item. Psychologists call this mental accounting. You don't see your money as one system. You divide it into invisible categories: fuel, food, entertainment, savings. When one category increases, you don't rebalance logically, you react emotionally. You cut what feels optional. Restaurants disappear, subscriptions get canceled, trips get postponed. Investments quietly shrink. Not because your income changed, but because your perception of safety did. Because fuel is only wave one. Oil prices surged from around $70 per barrel to above $110 in just weeks. That increase alone is costing the US economy hundreds of millions of dollars per day. And it happened almost instantly. Wave 2. Food. This one is already starting. Perishable food, produce, dairy, meat, depends on refrigerated transport that runs on diesel. When diesel rises by over 30%, distribution costs spike immediately. Retailers don't pass that cost on right away. They absorb it for a while. But here's the issue. They've already been absorbing other cost pressures. Margins are thin. So when they stop absorbing, prices adjust quickly. And when they do, you'll feel it every time you shop. Wave 3. Agriculture. This is the delayed shock, and it's the one almost nobody sees coming. Fertilizer production depends heavily on fossil fuels, in some cases, up to 80% of the cost. And a large portion of global fertilizer supply moves through critical energy routes now under disruption, which means farmers are already paying more today for crops you won't buy until months later. So when food prices rise again later this year, it won't feel connected, but the cause is already in motion. Wave 4. Travel. Jet fuel prices have surged dramatically. Airlines don't adjust pricing daily, they price months ahead, which means higher ticket prices are already locked in. Even if oil drops tomorrow, those costs won't disappear quickly. If you're planning to travel, you'll feel this one soon. Wave 5. Interest rates. This is the quiet one. Before this shock, markets expected borrowing costs to fall. That expectation is now uncertain. Because rising energy costs can push inflation higher, and when inflation rises, rate cuts get delayed or disappear entirely. That affects everything: mortgages, car loans, credit cards. The cost of borrowing stays elevated longer than expected, and that changes financial decisions across millions of households. Now here's the deeper problem. Your brain isn't processing all 5 waves. It's anchoring to one number: the price at the pump. This is called anchoring bias. When faced with a complex system, your brain simplifies it. It picks one visible signal and treats it as the whole story. Right now, that signal is fuel prices. And because fuel feels survivable, your brain concludes, "We'll be fine." That conclusion is incomplete. Because energy shocks don't stay contained, they spread. Historically, they move through the economy step by step, until they reach everything. We've seen this before. Energy disruptions have repeatedly triggered periods of high inflation and economic slowdown. When costs rise and growth slows at the same time, economists call it stagflation. And it's one of the hardest environments for both policymakers and households. Now layer that onto financial markets. Stock indices have already shown volatility. Major indexes have pulled back from recent highs. Smaller companies, more sensitive to borrowing costs, have fallen even further. Even traditional, safe assets haven't behaved predictably. And when that happens, your brain shifts again. This time, it's loss aversion. Losses feel more painful than gains feel good. So when markets fall, your instinct isn't to think long-term, it's to protect, to sell, to exit, to reduce exposure. But history tells a different story. Across decades of geopolitical events, markets tend to drop during uncertainty and recover afterward. Not always immediately, not always smoothly, but consistently over time. The real risk isn't volatility, it's behavior, because the biggest losses don't come from the market, they come from decisions made during fear, selling during downturns, waiting for certainty, missing recovery. There's even a measurable gap for this: the difference between market returns and investor returns. And most of that gap exists because of emotional decisions. So what actually works? Not dramatic moves, not predictions, small, consistent actions. First, stability. Build or strengthen your emergency buffer, not just for financial security, but for psychological stability. Because when you know you have margin, you make better decisions. Second, control spending early, not reactively, proactively, because each wave hasn't fully arrived yet, and small adjustments made early compound over time. Third, consistency. If you're investing regularly, continue, because volatility lowers entry prices, and long-term returns depend on participation, not timing. Fourth, exposure awareness. Understand where rising energy costs affect your life directly: transportation, debt, business costs. Because once you see the exposure, you can adjust it. And finally, discipline. Not emotional discipline, structural discipline. Systems that keep you consistent even when your instincts aren't. Because here's the truth: the people who navigate shocks best aren't the ones who predict them. They're the ones who adjust early, quietly, before the pressure peaks. No headlines, no dramatic moves, just small decisions made sooner than most. Right now you're aware. You're thinking about it. That already puts you ahead of the majority. Because most people won't act until the later waves arrive. And by then, their options will be smaller. This isn't about fear. It's about timing. You don't need to control the economy. You only need to control your response to it. And the window to do that is open right now.